Baptist Church. Pastor, if you'd like to come forward, please. Everyone, if you so choose, please stand with me and remain standing for the pledge to our nation's flag. And everyone, if you would, please silence your cell phones.
Pray first.
Yes, sir. That would
Okay.
be great. Thank
Let's
you so
pray.
much.
Lord, I pray that the decisions, the discussion today, the work of our leaders, the work of this city, that they would be based on values, things that matter. It is a powerful statement that wise people value what is most valuable. But so many of those things that are valuable, they can't be purchased with money or moved through some economy. We often pray for the things the world can't give, so we pray for those things that you would give in abundance to these leaders, to this place, to this time, things like hope and patience and joy. The world can't give what you can give in that way, peace and kindness and goodness and self-control. We praise you this week, this Easter, that you have provided those things in abundance, that the central Christian belief is that you, Jesus, have, and your death has somehow put us right with God and given us a fresh start. So we praise you for that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge to our nation's flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Pastor. May we have the roll call, please?
Mayor Ames.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Felshaw.
Present.
Councilmember Getz.
Present.
Councilmember Neal.
Present.
Councilmember Pate.
Here.
Councilmember Samuel.
Present.
Councilmember Mouton. Present. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We do have one presentation today, and I'm honored to give this presentation on behalf of one of our city employees who is retiring. Do I see her?
Front row.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you can.
I was thinking, I hope you showed up.
No retiring early.
Whereas Sherry Jones Ulmer is a native of Beaumont, Texas, and is a proud graduate of Hebert High School class of 1970. After obtaining a Bachelor of Science degree in nursing from Texas Women's University in 1974, she began a career that spans 46 years. Sherry is also a proud member of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. And whereas Sherry has 20 years and 10 months of dedicated service to the city of Beaumont, and I might add that 20 years and 10 months, the 10 months is because of COVID. And I just want to thank you so much for foregoing your retirement and staying with us through this past year, because we've really needed you and y'all have done a great job. That's my 2 cents. So, 20 years and 10 months of dedicated service to the city of Beaumont, and is set to work her last day this Wednesday, tomorrow, March 31st. For the past 9 years, she has been the director of the City of Beaumont's Public Health Department. Prior to that, she served as the Health Department's clinical nurse manager for 12 years. And whereas in her role as health director, she is responsible for administrative and budgetary oversight of all areas of the health department that includes vital statistics, health promotion, tuberculosis elimination, sexually transmitted infections, immunizations, WIC, environmental health, and emergency preparedness. And whereas Sherry's primary role for the past year has centered largely around protecting the health and safety of the citizens throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, she has faced every COVID-related challenge with hope and determination. Her countless hours of time monitoring cases, arranging mass testing, gathering and distributing ever-changing safety measures to the public, contact tracing, and now managing a COVID-19 vaccination hub with the goal of vaccinating the entire city of Beaumont against COVID-19, among many other duties, is recognized today. Throughout the entire event, Sherry has always put the health of the citizens first and has done a phenomenal job. And whereas although Sherry's professional position is one of great responsibility and dedication, she also has a personal life centered around her love for her family. Sherry has been married to her husband, Gerald, for 42 years. They are members of Christian Fellowship Worship Center, where Sherry is a member of the Greeters Ministry. They have one daughter and one grandson. And now, therefore, I, Becky Ames, Mayor of the City of Beaumont, applaud Sherry Jones Ulmer for her selfless dedication to the community, to her family, and to her friends alike, and do hereby recognize this 30th day of March 2021 in honor of Beaumont Public Health Director Sherry Ulmer in Beaumont, and we thank her for her many years of dedicated service to our citizens and wish her the very best in her future endeavors as she officially retires tomorrow. Accordingly, I have set my hand and I've caused the seal of the City of Beaumont to be affixed, signed today, March 30th, 2021. And before you come forward, Sherry, I would just like to say, and I've said this many times, I couldn't be prouder of the job that you and your staff and all those involved through emergency management have done through COVID-19, and especially in the past few weeks, months, in vaccinations. I cannot tell you how many phone calls and how many texts that I have received about how organized that the facility is, and I guess it doesn't help to have that great new building. Thank you, council, for that, right? But it's been great, and fortunately, because of their willingness to extend hours and to extend days on non-work days, we were able to keep our vaccination hub in the public health department rather than moving it to the civic center, which has been much more efficient because we have the ability to store the vaccines in the building, where we're not having to transport anything. We don't have to set up and take down, and the building is plenty large enough to do it, but that's only because of the staff and everyone involved's willingness to work extra hours, to extend our hours, which is actually better for our citizens because they're able to come before or after work if they need to, and certainly we want to accommodate that. But I have received so many accolades about how quick it is. You can go get your vaccine and be out within 30, 45 minutes, where some places you're going and you're waiting in line for 3 hours. Go Beaumont, go Sherry, Sherry's staff, all of you, thank you so much. And certainly last but not least, I'd just like to say, we wish COVID-19 hadn't happened, but what a great note to go out on. Good job, well done. I applaud you for that, and I appreciate you for that, and I'll be going with you soon. Thank you so much. Come forward, please, and feel free to say a few words.
All right.
Here you go, Sherry.
There you go. Great job.
She's always behind the scenes and isn't very loud, but we want to hear from you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Council. Thank you for this. This is such an honor. I am always behind the scenes because that's what public health is. We're behind the scenes discipline, and until COVID came on the scene and we were thrust into the spotlight, this has been different. This has been totally different for us. So a part of our mission in public health is to prevent the spread of infectious diseases. And so we monitor diseases every day. That's what we do every day. It's behind the scenes. Nobody knows it because we don't have epidemics, but we're looking at diseases like TB. Those things do not get out of control because we have staff who monitor that and do contact tracing, get people on medications, and so we never have a problem. COVID came on the scene and everything was topsy-turvy. So I wish that I could take credit for all of what we have done. I cannot. I have this wonderful staff.
And they love you too.
I love them so much. Oh my goodness! And in spite of negative feedback, they have kept the mission. We have stuck with the mission to prevent the spread of this disease. And so I am honored. I am so happy that the health department is in good hands. They know the mission. They will carry it through. And I always have to give credit to my parents. You have to know my story. I am the granddaughter of sharecroppers and parents who were not formally educated, who taught me the importance of education, who taught me a good work ethic, and who taught me a strong faith in God. And I always have to acknowledge them. They are the wisest people that I have ever known. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And I have something for you. That is true. We've had our share of emergencies and through emergency management through the years. And this is the first one that thrusts public health into the limelight, but y'all have certainly stepped up to the challenge. And I think that the department heads are all here. They want to take a photograph with council and us, I think. Whatever you want, Angie, you're the boss. You just tell us what to do. Again, thank you, Sherry. We appreciate you.
It's kind of sticky.
Okay. Okay. So y'all want to? Oh, I guess we could take it. Oh,
I almost want to.
I don't want to. It's public health. Leave our mask on, it's public health.
Three. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. One more, please. 1, 2, 3.
Smiling with my eyes.
Yes.
Hey, excuse me.
I think, oh, they're going to do it here? Okay. I didn't know that. Okay. Whatever.
Get over here, Mama.
I have a hole.
Yeah. Have to get on the same side of Mark's head. He's old.
I thought we were stacking, so I got it back.
It's public health, Tina. It's public health.
Okay, on 3. Here we go. 1, 2, 3.
Can you see?
Okay, let's do it one more time. 1, 2, 3.
That's
Thank you
good.
very much.
Yeah.
We already have one. Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank y'all. It's a nail. I'm not gonna say they're gonna have.
So now that vaccinations have been open to everyone, I encourage you all to call vaccine.beaumonttexas.gov, vaccine.beaumonttexas written out.gov, Anyone can be vaccinated now. It's an easy process. At our public health department, if you're disabled, it's very easily to get to, very easy to be dropped off, and I hope everyone will consider that. Thank you. I can't breathe. Okay, Kyle, would you like to say something, City Manager?
Yesterday, the department directors, we all met and sharing stories, and two things I guess stand out. That number one, Sherry, I think it was after these storms kind of run together, but I think it was after Hurricane Harvey. We had a number of citizens in the Civic Center, and a group of us were walking in this south entrance, and here's the public health director tending to people on these makeshift beds. Some of them didn't even have any clothes on. It was a sight to see, meaning she's there helping people in some of the worst conditions you could imagine, but that's just her. And then she was planning to retire, I think, the end of last year, and or further back in 2020, but said, I'm not going to. A lot of ways I'd like to for my family's sake, but there's so much going on, I'm not going to leave in the middle of this COVID-19 situation, which she's just an incredible lady, and you all know that if you ever worked with her. Just a great person, great department director. She's going to be missed very much. So can't thank her enough for her service.
Thank you. Councilmember Newton, you wanted to say something?
Thank you, Mayor. Sherry, congratulations. Thank you for your dedication, for the work that you've done, and your commitment to our city. Once you make up your mind to retire, it's almost so hard to make that decision, and for you, it was so easy for you to cancel your retirement for the needs of our city and our citizens. So I cannot say enough about your integrity and your character for doing that. And we've talked about that. Thank you so very much. Enjoy your retirement. We will miss you. But you have a great staff that you're leaving us with. And we're so grateful that they can step into your shoes and our city can continue to move forward and run. So again, congratulations. Thank you so much. And I'll see you around town, my friend. Thank you.
Well, I'll just simply say, Sherry, no greater time than now. This in the midst of Great Women's Month. You're
Right.
a great woman of history. So thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Okay. All right. So that does conclude our proclamation for today. So if you're here for that purpose and you need to leave, now's the time to do so. But of course, you're always welcome to stay. And thank you, public health staff.
Thank you.
They have to go vaccinate more people. All right. Now would be the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. If you would like to make public comment today on scheduled agenda items 1 through 4 or the consent agenda, the time to do so is now. If you would like to speak on one of these items and you haven't already done so, please fill out the green slip at the rear of the room and hand it to the city clerk at the front of the room. She will call out your name. We would appreciate if you keep your comments to 3 minutes. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up. If you are here to speak on any other item today, I will open up the microphone at the end of our general business for that purpose. But right now, it's for 1 through 4 or the consent agenda.
I don't have any, Mayor.
Is there anyone that wants to speak on one of these items? Okay, there being none, I'll close the floor. Council, I'll entertain a motion for the consent agenda, please.
Move to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
No second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion? There being none, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item number 1, please.
Mayor and Council, item number 1 is an ordinance entitled, an ordinance amending Chapter 2, Article 2.04, Sections 2.04.003A1 and H of the Code of Ordinances of Beaumont, Texas, to make changes relating to civilian employees who work 12-hour shifts, providing for severability and providing for repeal. This is more of a housekeeping item. It will allow our employees who do work those 12-hour shifts to get paid time off leave and short-term disability if the employee is paid for 80 hours in a pay period. As stated in the ordinance, the proposed changes would only be applicable to civilian employees. The administration recommends approval.
Thank you. Council, you have heard the reading of item number 1. May I have a motion on this item, please?
Move to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor for approval. Is there any discussion, questions, or comments? Councilmember Neal.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Manager, does this increase your overtime cost?
It will.
Can we get a better understanding on why we're moving to this?
Most water departments, as it relates to their water production or their water plants, work a 12-hour shift. And we've looked at this a number of times in the past, and former director did not, really want to move forward with it, but the employees were wanting to, and we have a number of senior employees that have left and are planning to leave, and it's something that was brought to Mr. Bartkowiak, and we reviewed it and thought it was beneficial. We're going to eliminate one vacant position, which will make up for that additional cost with the overtime, the built-in overtime, but it's something we think will be beneficial. It's similar to, we call it a DuPont. You've heard the DuPont schedule. It's a modified DuPont schedule, but it's something that our employees want out there, and it's something the administration wants as well.
What is the added cost?
Todd ran the numbers for us. It'll be approximately $48,000 in overtime a year, but as Kyle indicated, we're going to eliminate one full-time authorized position, which will make up for that, and actually more than that. So the city will be net to the good, but and we'll be able to handle all of going from 8s to 12s. We'll be able to handle the shifts without that additional authorized position. But most importantly, right now it's a hodgepodge of 8-hour shifts. So if you come in, you're trying to hire somebody in, it's difficult to hire them in with kind of that uncertain shift forecast. Being able to have those 12s is advantageous for us to be able to hire people. It shows them that they'll get a fair schedule, be able to work, work some weekends, but have other weekends off, have holidays off. And so we feel it'll be advantageous to hiring and retaining people.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Councilmember Getz?
Okay, so, Mr. Manager, it wasn't that long ago where you made some moves into the water department and changed some personnel because of concerns about excessive overtime. And I'm just trying to understand if we are actually decreasing our overtime or increasing our overtime, or if our overtime decreased after you made those moves. What is our overtime in the water department tracked over the past 3 or 4 years? Has it gone down, stayed the same, gone up?
Well, it went down considerably since 2015. This is different. There's going to be a net savings by doing this. The only reason I'm bringing it to you, we make changes with schedules all the time, which you don't approve. We're only bringing this to you because Code of Ordinance, it says, it's been in there a long time, where you're only paid for time off if you work 40 hours in a given week. In some cases, if you work this schedule, you may work 36 hours in one week and 44 the next. So that's why I'm bringing it to you. To answer your overtime question, we could go pull those records since 2015 when we made a lot of changes.
Okay.
Okay, there's a motion and a second on the floor for approval. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Item number 2, please.
Item number 2 is to consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1, accept maintenance, and authorize a final payment to Vortex Turnkey Solutions LLC. Back in December of 2019, the council awarded a contract to Vortex for the Old Town area pipe bursting project in the amount of $999,962.50. The proposed change order is actually a reduction of $268,431.40. It's to adjust the estimated quantities in the contract to reflect the actual quantities. The project has been inspected by Water Utilities, found to be complete in accordance with the provisions and terms set out in the contract. The final payment would be made in the amount of $36,576.56. Funds are available in the capital program. The administration recommends approval.
Thank you, council. You have heard the reading of item number 2. May I have a motion on this item, please?
Move to approve.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion or questions? Councilman Getz.
This morning, I had the opportunity to look at some pipe bursting activity that was going on in the Dallin West area right there on Shakespeare. And it's impressive what these crews out there are doing. We have a lot of concrete pipe still in the city of Beaumont that needs to be slip lined or pipe burst. Bart, do you have any idea how much concrete pipe or percentage? I'm catching you cold, I'm sorry.
I don't have the number off the top of my head. I think we do have some stats on the website, but approximately 50% of the installed lines in the city are indeterminate, and those are all going to be, older pipe, cast iron, clay, or concrete.
Okay. And the reason that I'm bringing this up is because the work that's being done is extensive, and it will help provide relief to citizens that have sewage issues that come up. The Dallin West area, a lot of people might perceive that as being a newer area, but it's got concrete sewer lines back there. And so it, like a lot of areas in Beaumont, needs to have this work done. And I'm glad to see that it's being done, not just, in the West End, but all throughout the town, as evidenced by this proposal here.
Mayor?
Yes, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Bart. Could you explain with this project across the city, where will the next project begin with the pipe bursting and or either changing of the cast iron piping?
We're doing work across the city. I couldn't tell you exactly the next area, but what we've done is staff has looked at where the sewer calls are coming in from and the frequency of those, and created what we call heat maps, where the more problems in an area, the more intense the color is in that area. And those are the areas we tend to focus on, the ones that have the most problems, and then we'll go in and we'll pipe burst the lines in that area.
Okay, thank you.
As I understand it, Bart, is that they're not just doing one area at a time. There's multiple areas being done throughout the city at the same time, and we'll continue to do that. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am. I think we've done about $5 to $6 million worth of pipe bursting work over the last 12 months.
Okay. Thank you. There's a motion and a second on the floor for approval. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Great job. Thank y'all. Number 3, please.
Item number 3 is to consider a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute change order number 1, accept maintenance, and authorize a final payment to LD Construction. In March of 2020, the council awarded a contract to LD in the amount of $603,206.20 for the Tram Road Asphalt Resurfacing Project. Proposed change order number 1 is a reduction of $10,185.82. it's required to adjust the estimated quantities to reflect the actual quantities used. A final payment would be made in the amount of $29,651.02. The administration recommends approval.
Thank you. Council, you have heard the reading of item number 3. Is there a motion on this item, please?
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor for approval. Is there any discussion or questions? There being none, all in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries unanimously. Number 4, please.
Mayor and Council, item number 4 is to consider resolution approving additional funds for the city's new employee workforce management software system. It's called Kronos Workforce Dimensions. It's from Kronos Incorporated. Back in September of 2020, the City Council approved the initial purchase at a cost of $210,332.25. The software will be used by all of the city's departments to manage payroll, timekeeping, and additional human resource functions, and has been undergoing configuration and development by our IT department. Originally, the assumption was that the new software would go live in August of this year, and Finance and Personnel requested the go live be delayed until October the 1st, so that there is a clean break between our fiscal years and the software implementation. So because of this, an additional $31,254.17 is recommended, being requested. There are funds available in the general fund, the municipal court technology fund, as well as the water fund. And Bart Barkowiak is overseeing this. We anticipate some questions, and we can answer those for you.
Okay. Council, you've heard the reading of number 4. May I have a motion on this item, please?
Move to approve.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the floor. Is there any discussion?
Mayor,
Yes, go ahead, please.
Bart, could you justify the investment of $31,000 for a month and a half delay as opposed to coming online in August and thus saving those monies? And then number 2, can you tell us why, when we voted on this in August of 2020, or excuse me, September of 2020, why didn't we make the decision then to come online October 1 as opposed to August?
Yeah, and I apologize a bit here, because my understanding of why we incurred the additional money when I wrote the council item is slightly different than what I'm going to tell you today. So my understanding was that the shift in the date of the go live was predominantly responsible for the increase in the money, and that's not the case. We did shift the go live date. However, where we were off was when we entered into this, we were paying our Kronos maintenance from October through September. So our contract went for 12 months starting in the month of October. When we went into discussions with Kronos and we were moving to a new version of the software and entering into this project, they told us that they were going to give us 3 months of credit towards maintenance. So when we put the project together, we incorporated the 3-month credit into our maintenance totals budgeting for the year. We assumed that they would continue to bill us in October and that we would pay for 9 months this year instead of 12 months within the fiscal year. That did not, in fact, occur. What they did was they shifted the contract date. They gave us a credit from October to January, but they gave us a new contract that is in January for a full 12 months. So at that point, we're not paying anything we wouldn't have had to pay anyway, but we're paying 12 full months this fiscal year when we had assumed we were going to be paying 9 full months in the fiscal year. So again, I apologize for, I was assuming it was on the date, and it was because of that credit and the contract shift date is why we're incurring an additional expense this year. We're not losing any money. We're just shifting 3 months into this fiscal year from next fiscal year.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yes. I know it gets complicated.
Councilmember Getz.
And Remind us of why we made the change in our software. We all voted unanimously back in September of 2020, but how does this software program give advantages to what we are currently using?
This software is going to upgrade the payroll software, the timekeeping software, benefits, and the human resource function. So currently, while we use Kronos for timekeeping, the older style, we're still running payroll, benefits, and HR on the old HTE software, which is, I don't even know how many years it goes back. I've been here with the city over 15, and we had HTE well preceding me. So the functionality of that software is limited in what it does. HTE really doesn't add a whole lot of new functionality in. So the new payroll, benefits, and HR is going to give a lot more modern functions to both personnel and finance to be able to handle those duties.
So in other words, it works together through HR to finance to payroll.
It's
and
all
talks to each
connected, and
other.
it has a lot more features and functionality. I don't have all of them in front of
Yeah,
me today,
understand.
but I know we had gone through that before.
Yeah, we did. Thank you. Anything else, council? All right, there's a motion and a second on the floor for approval. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Being none, passes unanimously. Okay, we do have a discussion item next. If you'd like to take us into that, please.
Yes, ma'am. Mayor and council, the discussion item is to review and discuss proposed improvements at our water treatment plant located on Pine Street. And David Munn is here, I think, with other representatives from Freeze and Nichols. And he's going to come forward and lead the presentation. We're thankful you're here.
Great. Thank you, Kyle. Good afternoon, everybody. Good to see everyone again. So as Kyle said, what we're here to talk about today is your drinking water system, namely the resiliency of that drinking water system. So I've got also my colleague here with me today, Kendall Ryan. He's our master planning lead. He's going to handle kind of the second half of this presentation. We're really here to talk about two items, and the backstory to this is that Kyle and Bart had pulled together all the staff, in Freese and Nichols, the consulting team, went around the table and asked everybody, what is it that keeps you up at night? What is it that we need to be talking about to make sure that the city's drinking water system is resilient and is secure from future catastrophes? And there was a number of different items that came out, but two of them is looking at the resiliency of the raw water supply system, and then the transmission system, bringing that treated water out to the customers. And that's what we're here to talk about today. So I'm going to start with the emergency raw water supply alternative study. Rewinding the tape again, going back to Tropical Storm Harvey, we know that your raw water system has some vulnerabilities in it. It succumbed to those vulnerabilities during Harvey. And that's one reason why today your staff in Freese and Nichols is working together to deliver a new redundant, secure raw water pump station and pipeline. This would be a new pump station at Colliers Ferry and a new pipeline running down Pine Street to bring a second supply of raw water to the treatment plant. So that system is going to be online, operating in January of 2024. The question that Kyle and Bart posed to the team is, well, what do we need to be doing more in the near term ahead of that date to secure our water system against any catastrophes? So to provide a little bit more background, during Tropical Storm Harvey, the raw water supply was lost, but due to some heroics by your staff, by the contracting community, a temporary pumping system was put into place. It took some time to get situated. There were some logistical challenges there, some expenses, and some difficulties in operating that facility. And so the question was, is there something that we can do ahead of the next storm to make all of that type of situation easier to deal with? And so the the objective of this first study was to determine would the city be well served by investing in I'll call it a semi-permanent pump station that's still delivered with a budget cost that is both quickly deployed, cost effective, and easy to operate. And so that's what this study looked at. We looked at a number of different alternatives in terms of pumping technology. We looked at alternatives where we were going to repurpose some of your existing facilities. Looked at skid-mounted horizontal pumps, floating vertical pump stations, all manner of different perspectives on possible solutions. Also looked at different areas where we could deploy this technology. Now, all of those alternatives had different advantages and disadvantages. We thought that we could get some cost savings by repurposing some of the existing infrastructure on site. That actually turned out to be the most expensive alternative because there were some uncertainties over some of the infrastructure condition in those abandoned facilities. So we moved on to look at skid-mounted horizontal pumping systems similar to what was deployed previously, but again in more of a semi-permanent configuration. This presented both some permitting hurdles and then some operating and maintenance and hydraulic hurdles. So again, we moved away from this and really started to focus our attention on floating submersible pump technology. This eliminated some of the permitting hurdles. It made the maintenance and exercise of these much simpler, better hydraulics. We really keyed in on the technology that we see in the upper right-hand corner there. It is a trailer-mounted system where the generator, the temporary piping, the pumps all come in one package. It's manufactured by a company out of Vidor, Texas, so not too far from here. Has quite a bit of pumping capacity, up to 30 MGD. We really started liking this technology. That is until we saw the price tag. I'll get to that in a moment, but it is one of the major disadvantages of this alternative. Before I show you the bottom line price, just to kind of give the overall picture of what we priced out, it was a combination of permanent facilities and then what I'm going to call mobile facilities, which is what we saw on that last slide. So we'd put in permanent discharge piping, pump header, concrete pad, instrumentation and metering to help with the operation. That would all be out there again on a semi-permanent basis, and then there for whenever we needed to roll up with that mobile pumping unit, connect it, and go into operation very quickly. So this was the alternative that we thought was the most technically feasible. However, the bottom line price was still more expensive than what we were hoping for when we set out on this. On the far right-hand side, we see that alternative 3 at $2.4 million. That's if you bought that pumping technology, that mobile unit outright. You can rent it, and that would save you about $1 million or so. That was the least expensive alternative that we looked at. We see that the others were even more expensive than that. So at the end of the day, we were really challenged with a decision of whether or not the value that this would provide justifies the cost. So it would take about a year to procure and install this equipment and procure that mobile pumping unit. So we would only get about 18 months of value before the Colliers raw water pump station is online. And so at the end of the day, while we want to be conservative, while we want to safeguard the city's drinking water system, we also have to be good stewards of your budget. And we just felt that in talking with your staff, it was hard to recommend an expenditure this expensive for a value that would be that short-lived. So at the end of the study, our recommendation is to continue being in touch with that contractor that mobilized that kind of last-minute emergency system. That had a much better value. You know, you could wait until the storm was in the Gulf, until you knew it was going to be dire, to have to spend that money, rather than having to make an expenditure of this size today. So our recommendation, keep that contractor's number on speed dial and invest your time and effort in that permanent Colliers raw water pump station, which again, we're all working on and is going to be delivered by 2024. So that's the end of the first half of the presentation. In a moment, I'm going to turn it over to Kendall, but wanted to give an opportunity if there's any questions or comments about the first half of the study.
Okay, anyone have any questions for Mr. Munn?
Yes.
Okay. Councilman Getz?
The location of the new pump station at Colliers Ferry, can we define that a little bit more? Is it going to be where the recreational aspects of Colliers Ferry is right now with the boat docks and the picnic tables? Is that where it's going to be, or is it going to be somewhere else?
Let me answer that. It's in a grassy area as close to Pine Street as we could get. And so y'all approved that already, 6-1 vote, which we were very pleased with. So if you were to take the existing pump station there adjacent to the river and go towards Pine Street, go west, maybe a couple hundred yards, would you say? But it's on vacant property right now. It's not going to disturb the park at all.
There's a rise in the park that goes up towards where a transformer is now that feeds the park facilities. It's not really in an area used by the public, up next to the fence of the cemetery. So it'll be out of the recreational.
It'll be out of the recreational area. It'll be out of view from the recreational area. Be out of the.
It'll be screened. Obviously, you'd be able to see the pump station. It's above ground.
You'll be able to see it from the recreational area, but
Absolutely.
it'll be fenced. And the pump station emits considerable noise. So
that was one of our primary concerns, and as a result, we're focusing on submersible pumps, which are a lot quieter.
So you don't think that there will be a noise component that will be intrusive to the people that are using Colliers Ferry Park?
There'll be some noise, but it'll be minimized because the pumps are underwater.
So it's as close to Pine as we could get it.
Elevated away from the river in an area that did not flood during Harvey.
Any other questions or comments for Mr. Munn? None? Okay.
Great. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Kendall Ryan.
Okay.
Thank you, David. Good afternoon,
Hello.
Mayor and Council. All right, keyboard works. It's a good start. All right, so we're going to talk about the second part of the what's keeping you up at night conversation that was referenced a few minutes ago. And this is on the other side of the Pine treatment plant. So you have the water coming in, then you have the water going out. So this is focusing on the treated water going out of the treatment plant to the residents. So the agenda will be pretty short and brief. We're going to talk about an overview of the study. We're going to introduce it in two ways, both the background and the drivers. We're going to talk for just one slide about the water modeling analysis, kind of the guts of the study. And then we're going to focus on the findings and the recommendations and the potential path forward coming out of this resiliency study. The purpose is at the top of your screen there. It was a pretty well-defined scope of what we wanted to look at. We looked at an area close to the plant and said what we want to accomplish with this study is to add resiliency to the water system in case of a major line failure near the plant. And the reason for that specific scope will become obvious as we step through these slides. So as a note on background, the study area is kind of right in the middle of your screen in that sort of dotted area. We were focusing on the larger distribution system lines that leave the Pine Street Treatment Facility. It's a pretty commonly known fact that all the water, at least when Loeb is not online, comes from the Pine Street plant. What is maybe less apparent to the casual observer is that all that water leaves by virtue of two water pipes that go out of the treatment facility. One is a 42-inch line that comes out of the north, and one's a 30-inch line that comes out of the south. And those lines were constructed in the 40s and the 50s. So not in terms of people years, but in terms of pipe years, that's getting up there. That's those are definitely considered to be old lines, and worth looking at in a little more detail. A note on drivers. The real reason we were focused on this study area is if you look at the figure in front of you, there's 4 yellow stars. And the yellow star on the top was a line break that happened on the 42-inch water line back in 2019. You may remember there was a big scramble from the operations staff to try to isolate that line and keep system pressures above the required level by TCEQ. And then we also dug into some additional work order data as part of this study to look at the other critical lines in this area. And we found 3 other major leaks that led to system challenges or pressure loss, all within the last 7 years on the line going to the south, leaving the facility. So again, 2 critical lines. They both had their challenges in recent years. And so that was really kind of fills out the drivers for this study. And one of the questions that has been asked, that was asked going into the study was, with the isolation challenges, is it an issue? Are both lines needed really? Or was it just that if we could isolate the line that broke quicker, could you still get by with one of the 2 lines leaving the facility? And so we were able to look at that with the water model. Some background here is that Beaumont invested a number of years ago in a full water system model calibrated to pressure recorder data. It's a very good tool to use for systems or an analysis like this, and so we use that model for this analysis. The same figure is on your screen in front of you, but this time we've broken the lines into 4 different colors. So for purposes of the modeling study and the analysis, we broke those larger lines into 4 different segments. And what we did is we simulated a break in the model. We said, what happens if this line breaks? What do the system pressures do? What do the tank levels do? And the first thing we were able to do is kind of give us some validation of the findings was that we were able to replicate the system pressures and the system response that was seen in 2019 when that 42-inch line broke in real life. So that we knew we were on the right track when we saw those results. And then we broke the other lines, again, in the model to see what would happen. And the major finding coming out of that was that you really the city does need both lines. You need the north line and the south line in high demand times to be able to get all the water to the system and serve the residents at the right pressure. So knowing that, we were able to move forward with recommendations. The recommendations, working through this with staff, we broke it down into 3 phases. And we've kind of lumped the first 2 together because sequence matters, but also there's a lot of efficiencies to be gained if you do phases 1 and 2 at the same time. So we'll break those out now. Phase 1 is on the left side of your screen. The way to really mitigate the risk of one of these lines failing and to be able to do inspections on and really maintain the existing lines is actually to build another line. What that does is it puts kind of another straw in the cup, if you will, allows a 3rd pipeline to carry water out of the treatment plant, and it gives you the ability to take one of those, what would then be 3 lines out of service, because you could still have any of the other 2 in service, which is what you need to deliver water. So and we're talking about, everything's relative, but less than a mile of line here, because all you need to do is get the water from the plant out to the rest of the major arteries in the system so that we get through that critical area of delivery. So the first phase is a new 42-inch water line, a little bit less than a mile long. The second phase, as we're calling it, is to install some additional isolation valves. And all that means is that it allows the city operations staff to be able to go and close the line off and repair the line quickly and help mitigate the loss of system pressure. Those were not having enough valves that they could get to in this area because it's old was a challenge in all those previous break events that we talked about in the previous slide. So there were 4 locations that we identified where if you added 4 more valves, you'd have enough ability to isolate any one of these lines in the event of a future failure. The 3rd phase is condition assessment. So the first 2 is really a construction project to put in a new water line and cut in some new valves, or the first 2 phases. The 3rd phase is really to go and look at the existing lines, those lines from the 1940s and 1950s. There are different technologies to do that. What we've done is provide a budget number to do that, to give you the ability to pick from those technologies. But a lot of those condition assessment technologies require that you take the line out of service to really get at what it looks like. And again, that's really not an option right now to continue to provide water service to the city. So in closing, the all-important money slide, we've got pretty good cost estimates for the phases 1 and 2. We've been working with the city to look at what a real cost estimate for that design and construction would look like. And that's broken out for you on the top of the slide, total at about $4.4 million. And again, the reasons for that is to increase the distribution system resiliency, mitigate against that major line failure, which again, we've seen 4 times in the last 7 years. And that was kind of the stated goal of the study, is to figure out a good way to do that. And then also to allow for the inspection and rehab of the existing older lines in the area. I do want to actually make something clear. The figure on the left side of your screen shows 2 lines in red, A and B. The recommendation is to construct one of those. They both do the same thing. There were options for the city staff to evaluate and look at and decide on. So we're talking about 1 new line, not 2.
So,
Yes, sir.
go back to that last.
Absolutely.
So, the one on the left,
Mhm.
A and B, so you're saying one of those?
Correct.
Not both?
That's correct.
And that will work in conjunction with the existing lines?
You got it. That's right. You got it.
So, is that a connection where the red lines meet the black line to the west? Is that the existing line?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep. You got it. All right, so we talked about the estimated costs for phases 1 and 2. What we've done, the approach for phase 3 is to provide a budgetary number. This would again come after the construction of the recommended phases 1 and 2. It would give the city the flexibility to go in and inspect those existing older lines and figure out what's really going on, why they keep, why they've had multiple breaks. That inspection, that budget number of $374,000 would give the city plenty of flexibility to decide between different technologies and what's best to go and look at those lines. And again, that's recommended due to really 3 converging factors. Critical lines, got age on them, and they're already breaking. So we put those 3 factors together, and it seemed a prudent recommendation to go and inspect those lines. That's the end of the presentation.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mayor.
Yep, go ahead.
I just had one additional question. So the existing line, I think it was one of the first frames.
Yes, sir.
That showed multiple size differences.
Yes, sir.
24-inch line, 30-inch line, 36 and 42.
That's correct.
So with the new system, we will be implementing a 42-inch line
correct.
either to the north or to the south.
That's correct.
That will connect with the 30, or would all
Yep.
become 42-inch?
No, sir, that's a good question. Everything on your screen would stay the size that it is. There'd be, right now you have a 42 and a 30 leaving the plant. The proposal would give you a second 42 leaving the plant. So kind of maximum resiliency if any of those 3 lines were to break.
Okay. Councilmember Mouton?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so for the average citizen that's listening to this.
Yes, ma'am.
And the breakdown of it when they turn their water faucet on and they have no pressure.
Correct.
Can you give a breakdown to the understanding of why that happens
How this helps?
at their house?
That's
Thank
right.
you.
That's right. So right now, when you turn your faucet on and there's pressurized water that comes out, so you can, for me, wash my newborn or, get water to cook with, that happens because there's enough, there's big enough pipes that can deliver enough water to keep pressure up. And what we found in this study is that right now there's only 2 pipes that deliver all that water. And if one of them breaks, there's not enough piping left to deliver enough water pressure. So you need what we're proposing is, for resiliency and redundancy purposes, to build a 3rd pipe so that if any one of those breaks, as has happened multiple times in the last few years, you would still have the pressure you want when you turn your faucet on.
During a tropical storm or
Correct.
hurricane?
Yep, that's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So it also adds backup.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Anybody else? Yes.
Kendall, David, thank you for being here. For the benefit of the council and the citizens, what's your estimated timeline on the design and engineering?
The design and engineering would be a matter of, I have to look at the specifics again, but it's months. I don't know if, Bart, if you have that proposal or not, or. I'll apologize to Bart later for putting him on the spot.
Unless the council tells us otherwise, we're planning to move forward as quickly as possible, execute this agreement so Freeze and Nichols can move forward, and then, they'll put all the specifications together, would go out for bids and move forward again as quickly as possible, get this project under construction. We think it's critical. If we could start tomorrow, we would. But we have to engineer it properly And that's what they've been working on for
Yeah. So I think I have two more questions over here, but before I do, if you don't mind, to bring everything together, and I know this is kind of a loaded question, but, and if we don't have all the information, that's okay, but the council voted a while back 6-1 for the pumping station at Pine Street. That's the one you were referring to. We are also looking at, through the grants, the West End water plant. How does all this work together? I know that y'all have looked at that, but just for a basic understanding for those of us who are not engineers or planners for water, how does, all these different things we're doing, I recognize I'm very happy that this is coming forward because we know that we have some old lines, we have a lot of old areas of town and newer areas of town that suffer issues, like the West End sometimes doesn't have pressure when the lobe is not, sometimes we do. So can you speak to that just a little bit, please? Or if these guys have any input?
They know more than I do. Harvey, we experienced, that was a tough deal,
Yeah.
right? We lost water for a number of days. We were able to restore water, but it wasn't potable. But at least, people could flush their toilets and wash their clothes and just couldn't drink it. And I think we didn't have potable water for maybe 10 or 11 days.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very difficult time to go through, as we all know. So you go through something like that, and you start from scratch with staff. And Freese & Nichols, a very reputable engineering firm based in Fort Worth with offices around the state. They've been working with the city of Beaumont for, I think, at least 50 years, probably even longer. Okay. Yeah,
Y'all weren't born, for sure.
A long time. So that tells you a lot about
My goodness.
that firm. So after Harvey, we had a number of meetings for days at a time, sometimes hours and hours and hours about, look, let's step back from this. Let's learn from this. What do we need to do for the next 30, 40, 50 years? And so they've helped us with an assessment of our entire system. So before Harvey, we were getting, the great majority of our water from the Neches River, but also the Loeb wells in Hardin County. We have 3 wells there. And so it was a combined, you had surface water and also from the wells. So we know we needed to make improvements, and the council's been very supportive of allowing us to borrow funds, water revenue bonds, also to, we've used cash in some instances to pay for some improvements. But so you're looking at improvements at the water plant, which we've talked about today. The pump stations, we all know, flooded along the Neches River that never had water on the site before. And so that's why we made application to the state of Texas to try to secure grant funds to construct a new pump station, again, out of that, as far away from the river as we could get, and then a new transmission line going down Pine Street to the plant. And then you'd have a backup. You'd have 2 pump stations there, which I would advise you to keep for those resiliency purposes. And I've mentioned this, and I'll mention it publicly. We did start off the meeting with what keeps you up at night. What are the things that are great concerns to us as a staff? Well, you have one line coming down Breaks Bayou, that runs pretty much parallel with the river. One big line coming from that pump station to our water plant. If that failed today, it'd be a big problem. And so that's why all these things tie together. We're making improvements, and we have over the last couple years out at the Loeb facility, and that's a continual effort. And then also part of this overall plan was to make application to the state. It's federal money for a $100 million new treatment plant, probably 15 MGD, million gallons per day there, which means that's not enough to serve the city of Beaumont. So you'd have the existing water plant and hopefully a new water plant serving the West End from both sides of the city of Beaumont, pumping water out to 85 square miles, serving, 120,000 permanent residents, but we all know the business and industry that's here. So it all does tie together, Mayor, and I think we have a good plan in place. And again, the key is y'all have been supportive in those efforts, and hopefully we'll get that funding for the new plant. It's not inked yet, but I think we're going to be approved for the new pump station transmission line. One of the two's been approved.
We have a contract with CDBG for the $9.8 million in funding for part of the funding for that transmission line. We won't get a final answer on the use of the FEMA funds for the Colliers Ferry pump station until we get to 100% design.
Okay.
They want that 100% design, and then it's very favorable, but we just need that before we get an okay.
And for the benefit of the public, the council members know this. So you have these different pots of money out there, federal money flowing down, different state agencies with different rules, different match requirements. And it would be much easier if we, the city of Beaumont, were to say, go to Freeze and Nichols and say, hey, we're going to enter into an engineering contract, let's move forward immediately. And you're not able to do that as a part of some of these grants because you have to meet their criteria and stipulations before you move forward, or you lose out on the money. And when they're paying for 75% or 80% of a project, in some cases even more, then you're pretty much at their mercy. And thank goodness the funds are there, but that's why it takes so much time to move some of these projects forward. In some cases, we've paid cash and done some smaller size projects because we could, but when you start talking about $15+ million project here and there, especially that $100 million new plant, in that case, there's only a 1% match.
Mm-hmm.
So we're definitely better off today than we were any time in the last since Harvey. We have more work to do. It's going to be, I think we'll be working on this for years and years. But again, I can't thank you enough for your support, the staff. I mean, it's been a arduous process. Freeze and Nichols has helped us a lot, and their experience is critical.
Thank you. Very good, thanks. Councilmember Neal?
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, I think these are great projects that should have been done years ago, actually. With that being said, it's my understanding that through the COVID stimulus package, the city of Beaumont is going to receive some type of payout. What do we need to do to possibly earmark some of that money for projects like this?
Well, we think we're going to get about $33 million, somewhere in that neighborhood. So when the legislation has been approved, as we all know, and so once we start getting better information as to specifically what you can spend it on and what the rules are, we would probably pay for this or come to the council and ask you to approve funds for this specific project, that new 42-inch line specifically. Let's say it's not eligible. We could use the $25 million that the council approved, water revenue bonds that we have on hand that we received in the last, say, 3 or 4 months. That's another option. And then our fund balance in the water fund's a $53 million annual budget just for the water fund. That fund balance is very good. It's been built up a lot over the last 5 or 6 years. And if we had to pay cash for it, I would recommend that. I mean, again, this is a critical piece of the puzzle. So, but to answer your question, we think we could use a portion of that $33 million.
Thank you.
Yes. Councilmember Getz?
The Lawson pump plant, what will become of it after the new pump plant is created at Collier Park? I heard the city manager say that he recommended keeping it for resiliency purposes. Is that what, I mean, it's functional, it works, everything's fine there as far as you know, or what's the condition of it?
Yes, that would be our recommendation, to keep that pump station online and that current pipeline that currently brings water down the Lawson's Canal. We would recommend keeping that online so that you do have true redundancy in your system.
When you say online, you're going to be building a new pumping station at Colliers Ferry Landing. how's it going to be allocated? I mean, will they both be operating at the same time, or how's that going to work?
You can operate them both at the same time, and you would want to operate each one of them enough just for maintenance and
That's right.
exercising purposes. The exact nature of, how much you're going to run one versus the other is yet to be determined, but there's a wide spectrum of approaches that you could take there. I think the important thing that we've concluded is that it's very valuable to keep it as an infrastructure and to operate it enough to keep it in working order.
Our plan, Councilman, is to shut down Lawson when Colliers Ferry becomes operational and be able to take advantage of that to do some maintenance on it, to check that line from the Lawson's Ferry to the plant, which we can't do right now, to see if there's silt, et cetera, in it, address any issues with it. And those pumps have been operating constantly since they were installed. Look at whether we need to replace them or at least go through and be able to perform maintenance on them, since they're running 24 hours a day right now. And then after that point, to Mr. Munn's point, we probably would alternate switching so we could run them at full capacity and then be able to check the other one while the one's down.
Okay.
Any other questions? So this last episode we went through with the hard freeze, the freeze storm. We know that we had low water pressure in different parts of the city and throughout the city. And when I talked to Bart, he told me we were pumping almost double of what we typically pump on a winter's day.
Over double.
Double.
We normally use 20 to 22 million gallons a day during the winter. And at one point, we were actually pumping at a rate of 48 million gallons a day. And we were consistently pumping from the very, very high 30s, 38, 39 to 42 or so the entire time.
So in other words, this would help in not only a rain event like Harvey, but also a freeze event like we saw this few months ago.
Yes and no. What we learned during this event is I don't think we were going to be able to realistically pump our way out of the event. We were just overtaxed with consumption, so I'd hate to give anyone the impression that we could provide enough water to overcome all of the breaks plus everybody running their water lines. But it would certainly help. We've never been able to operate this plant consistently at 45 MGD, which is supposedly what it's rated for because of the raw water. So this station being rated at 45 would definitely be able to allow us to pump more than we have been in the past.
Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Okay, so with us keeping Larson and the existing pump, how does it affect, which would be the north side, and then Ward 4 on the total opposite end?
We're supplying the entire city out of Pine today.
Right now.
Today.
Awesome.
Yes, because Loeb is off right now, so Pine is capable of supplying water to the entire city.
Okay.
But that's it. Yeah, that's all of it, yes.
So with this plan, am I understanding correctly that because we're putting in the additional lines, the 42-inch line, that will help in the event of events like the freeze, where we had a lot of breaks? And
No, sir. No. The winter storm wasn't a pumping issue at all.
it was pressure?
It was a pressure because of the number of breaks throughout the system at people's, mostly at their houses and businesses on their side.
It was a consumption issue.
And consumption. I mean, there's so much demand because of all these breaks.
Because it was
So it's a
run.
pressure issue.
Yeah.
So what we're dealing with today, before the winter storm was brought up, is where are our weaknesses in our water system as a city? Where are our weaknesses? Things that could happen that would affect all of our residents. So with 2 lines leaving the water plant, that's a weakness, because if we have one failure, let's say today, with one of those 2 lines, that'd be a big problem. So that's why we would like a 3rd line. So that'll help everyone. So we're, again, looking at weaknesses and how do we overcome some of those challenges.
And we can't fix both of those old lines built in the 40s or 50s. We cannot take them out of service today to inspect them or to fix them or replace them as a whole, because we have to have them day to day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So if you put a third line in and you put those additional 4 valves they talked about, now we can shut down one of the 2 existing older lines, inspect it, and then if we need to do maintenance, replace line sections, or replace the whole thing, we're capable of doing so. Whereas right now, we're not positioned to be able to do that.
Understand. Well, I wanted to bring up the ice storm because I think when we look at this as a whole, that maybe the general public could think, well, we're doing all this work and it won't happen, nothing like this will ever happen again. But the truth of the matter is the majority of the breaks were on the side of the resident, and so that water's just running myself.
Yeah.
So the water's just running, and that's why we needed more water. Because if we had another ice storm and we have that many breaks on the resident side or the citizen side, this isn't going to make that much difference. And I just want to make sure that's understood, because we're talking a lot of money, although these grants are available. I don't know that they always were. It seems like we have more availability
After Harvey.
than we used to. And also the CARE Act brought in money, and then you're talking about the stimulus and all these different things. That stuff wasn't available then, so we do need to take advantage of it.
The West End plant will help if we had another winter event like that, because you'd have better pressure in the West End, and you'd have a greater likelihood of keeping those storage tanks full. So that would help, but that's probably 5 years down the road.
Right.
Say, even once we get approved, probably more like 7.
Yeah, because it's not approved yet, right? Yeah.
And that's kind of where I was trying to go with this. So for the average citizen out there, this is not going to resolve our issue about our water system. It will assist, but it will not resolve it, because there are a number of other factors that's important, such as the pressure in the lines. And we have 3 lines existing, and we're adding another, 2 existing, adding a third, which would allow us to do maintenance on the old lines that we presently have. But when we talk about pressure in the system, that also includes pressure going from on the citizen side. And that's where we had a lot of the problems from the winter storm, was the citizen side. We were pumping, we were getting water in, but the water was going out of the system at residents, which caused the lower pressures, which impacted the water storage and allowed it to come down. That's what caused us to have the boil, because of the TCEQ regulations. So all of this, we can't do it all at one time. There's no way we could do that and finance that. But we're doing these, and part of the reason that it takes time is because of the regulatory agencies are seeking the funds. We have to get the submission of our plans before they will even say that they will fund it. Is that correct? That's correct. So all of these are pieces of a puzzle that I don't think we'll ever get to a point where everything is good, but we're making improvements as we go through time. Is that?
Yeah, that winter storm, I think, historically was like the 3rd, let's say, coldest event in recorded history. So
Kind of like Harvey.
it doesn't really matter what system you have. If we had another winter event like we did,
Yeah.
you're going to have the same problems. It's just a fact.
Well, because we're not maintaining the
Yeah,
citizen
because,
side.
yeah, the citizens' lines,
And you don't, and you may
some of
not
our
know.
lines, failed as well. Not failed, but there were breaks in the system.
Right.
But there's breaks in the system almost every day, right? There's breaks in the summertime. There's more breaks in the summertime. There's breaks in the wintertime. That's why we have the staff that we do out there making the repairs on a daily basis. But you have a winter event like that, there's not anything we can do. I mean, we do the best we can getting water out into the system, but so that's could happen next year, but those are rare events. What we're trying to do is have more resiliency in our system for 365 days a year, pumping
During
water to
regular
the
time.
citizens of Beaumont and industry. So we're trying to make improvements that'll have, a great return, and you're not gonna ever have a fail-proof system, but you try to get as close as possible within reason, spending, money, what's that rate of return? So I think these projects that they went through today, one we looked at, we're not recommending. That second one with the additional line, we think is critical. Just as critical as the new pump station and the new transmission line.
And just for sake of understanding to the general public, just like we're dealing with the water coming in, this is getting the fresh water in, we're having to deal with the same thing with getting the sewer lines, getting water lines out. So it's the same process, but it's just two different systems.
Not to give it a lesson, but it's interesting for the citizens watching. Back before federal legislation, I believe in the 70s, you had a combined sewer system. I mean, your stormwater and your sewer system is a combined system. It all went to the same place out, most cases, to the river, right? So federal legislation was passed, and you had to separate your systems, which cities across the United States have done, and we did. And so now you have separate systems. So the city of Beaumont, I think you were here. I was.
You're old, man.
I was not, but it was very, very creative in the state of Texas, and a number of folks came down here as a big groundbreaking, where our wetlands, our treatment facility was state of the art, because you're bringing through a natural wetlands the effluent, after it was treated, it goes out for 2 or 3 days, and then eventually goes into Hillebrand Bayou and out to Taylor's Bayou in the Gulf of Mexico. But it was a signature project where elected officials, I don't think the governor was here, but a lot of top people were here, and from the EPA. So that's something we use every day.
And that's become a tourism.
Yeah, now
it's birding capital
great
of.
point. I mean,
yeah.
We went out yesterday, about 5 or 6 department directors, and went through the new Terrell Park Visitor Center, and then we were riding around Terrell Park, the loop, because we're making some proposed drainage improvements, and there were probably 20 cars at the new birding center, which y'all approved. Beautiful day, and there were a lot of people out there.
But that's
what I'm
our
saying.
that's
but
our
that's
sewer
where
treatment.
that sewer eventually, after it's treated, goes through that natural process, which was,
They were ahead of their
progressive
time at
project.
that time. Yeah.
That was, I think, it was dedicated in like '93. So there used to be a combined system where it all went same piping system out to the Neches River. Some of it went out to our sewer plant, but a lot of it went right out to the river. And things have definitely changed over the last 40 years.
Yeah. Councilmember.
Thank you. So the return, it's for the West End primarily?
What's that? What do you mean, the return?
When we were talking about the Larson pump and the station that.
No, not at all. That's just, okay, so
God,
people
take that
watching
back.
this,
Take that
this
back.
is confusing, yeah.
Not true.
If you were to go out to Colliers Ferry, the end of Pine Street, and you were to go further north, there's a saltwater barrier, okay, managed by the LMBA. That saltwater barrier was built to keep that saltwater intrusion. So that was put in, I don't know, 20 plus years ago. So we get our water above the barrier, above that saltwater barrier. That's our intake. So you get that fresh water, and then it's piped through an open canal in most cases, and then there is piping as well. But then it comes on down, and then we pipe it across the Neches River. And the pump station
Goes under it.
piped over the pump station, pumps it further down. I'll throw out terms and bios that people don't care about, but it's piped down to our water plant along Pine Street. So the new pump station will serve that same purpose. It just gets it away from the river, so if we had another Harvey event, it wouldn't be compromised.
That's the Lawson.
Exactly, that's
So
lost.
it'll move it to where it's not, but the West End plan has nothing to, that won't affect
The
it.
currents were so strong, the mayor and I, the firefighters tried to bring us out on a boat. So we went down there and we got on the boat and they said, no, we're not gonna take you over there. This is too dangerous.
It was
And
that, it was unbelievable.
The currents coming through there, literally, were, the firefighters said, we're not gonna do it. We'll try again tomorrow. And I think it was a couple days later, we actually did it, you know, to go make observation. But you're talking about a site that's elevated now, never had water before. If you were to stand on that ground, the river's about where that wall is, right? And it's elevated, but we had what, 10 feet maybe, 8 feet of water around the
At
electrical
Lawson?
building at Lawson.
I don't know how high it went. I think
It
it
was
was
above
more
the
than
fence.
13 feet
Yeah.
up,
Higher
because
than-
it went up and then it completely submerged the electrical building and it submerged the pumps all the way to where just the very tips were out of the water.
Yeah, you could
So-
barely see the top of the fence at one
Public
point.
needs to
yeah.
know it knocked out our electrical, knocked out our no pumping capacity. And so, but then you need to think about, you have generators there, you couldn't get there by boat, right? Much less an 18-wheeler to go fill up these tanks. So the site was totally inaccessible for at least a week. And so you couldn't access your pump station to make the repairs you needed to. So that's why, and the council voted 6-1 to do this, that's why you need to move that
it.
pump station on over, away from the river, so we don't have that situation again.
So that's already in process, that's not,
Well, we're
The
still waiting
engineering
on
is.
okay.
yeah, it's in
That's the one he was
process,
talking about, yeah.
but, Yeah, it's not all put together yet.
Any other questions or comments? Good meeting, thank y'all very much.
Yeah,
We
thank you.
appreciate you, and glad y'all are smart on this. That's a good deal. Okay. That concludes our general business, but I would like to read that at the close of the city council meeting, the council will hold an executive session to consider matters related to contemplated or pending litigation in accordance with section 551.071 of the Government Code, Beverly Colomb versus the City of Beaumont, number B-203,757. Now would be the time for any citizen who wishes to speak. If you would like to make public comment today, the time to do so is now. If you haven't already done so and you would like to comment, please go ahead now and fill out the green slip at the rear of the room. Hand it to the officer, who'll hand it to the city clerk. She will call out your name. We would appreciate if you would keep your comments to 3 minutes. The green light will come on when you approach the podium, and the red light will come on when your time is up. Again, this is for general comments. If anyone would like to speak, please, if you do wish to, go ahead and fill out the green slip at the rear of the room and hand it to the officer here and the city clerk.
John Rodriguez, 855 Shakespeare, Beaumont, Texas.
Mayor, City Council, my name is John Rodriguez. I've been a resident for a little over 30 years here in Beaumont, have really enjoyed the services of Beaumont, so much so that I now own multiple investment properties, investment homes here. But in recent years, I've noticed a trend, and I hate to complain about this, but this isn't really a complaint, it's an observation, with the Water Department billing office. And the situation has been where I've had properties that have been vacant and one of them right next to me, my residence, anywhere from 3 to 9 months during the COVID 2020. And then we get a notice pinned on the door that says, water has been turned on. We try to get this resolved, and we get very little communication from the water department. In fact, our current situation is with a home that's been vacant since December. We got a notice the 1st of March, and we've been trying to get this resolved. And we started March 5th, and we were supposed to get communication back from a supervisor, and now it's March 30th. So I don't know what's going on here, but this seems to be occurring again and again. And when this happens, we are charged with having a new meter installed. No documentation is provided us when water was supposed to have been turned on, how much water, and there is an inconsistency with who you talk to at the water department about when it was turned on and how much water was used. So that's...
I'm sorry you had to come down here. I'm glad you did.
Mhm.
This is Todd Semino, our CFO. He's over the Water Customer Service Division, and y'all need to visit, and hopefully he can help you.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rodriguez.
Rodney Dinclough, 4105 Chason, Beaumont, Texas.
Dinclaw, remember him?
I know.
This one, Robin was talking about the last one. About those and the sidewalk.
That's good.
Hello, City Council. Hello, Mayor Ames.
Haven't seen you in a while.
I know, I've been around. But anyways, I'm up here for 2 reasons. And the main reason I'm up here is to give Mayor Ames a thank you for everything she's done for the disabled community and the senior citizens. I also want to thank her for, jumping on the matter when it was brought to your attention. I mean, that's awesome that you did that. I thank you for that and wish you good luck on your next chapter of your life and hope still see you around. The next thing on my agenda is, and I know no one can answer me, so I'm going to just ask this and y'all can answer it later. But it's for the candidates that are running for mayor. And my question is what are y'all going to do for the disabled and senior citizen community? And what I mean about that is like, what are y'all going to do about us getting around town with sidewalks and etc.? And what are y'all going to do about making it easier for us that want to work? Because it's hard for us to work because a lot of businesses look at us as a liability instead of good help. So, what are you going to do for us? And whatever your answer is, that holds our vote in your hand. And, we hopefully, whoever is elected, and if there's anything brought to the council that needs repairing it in our community, hopefully y'all will do a good job like Mayor Ames did. And so whenever y'all can, please let us know. I thank y'all, and I thank you for your services, Mayor Ames.
Thank you, Mr. Dimclaw. I really haven't seen you for a long time. I didn't know you were coming here for that today. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's very sweet of you. I will make a comment, though. We can't have a discussion, but I was recently appointed actually to the Governor's Task Force for the Disabled and the Elderly regarding emergency evacuation. And we had our second meeting yesterday, and I think that you'll be very pleased with some of the outcome from that task force. He has asked me to stay on even after I'm not the mayor anymore, so I will continue to do that after I leave. So Just letting you know that we're still working on that for y'all, Mr. Demaclaw. Thank you.
Vernon Tubbs, P.O. Box 6421, Beaumont, Texas.
Good
Pastor.
afternoon, Madam Mayor and Council. I'm here representing the faith group who's here with me. If it's all right, but they can stand while I'm
Sure.
reading my message.
Absolutely. Thank you.
All right. Again, I'm Vernon Tubbs, and I'm here representing the members of the Southeast Texas Faith and Community Leaders. We are a group of congregations and community leaders who are working together in Southeast Texas. We came before you today in support of the Beaumont Transit employees. Just to be clear, we're not here to inject ourselves in the current contract negotiations between the management company First Transit and the Amalgamated Transit Union. We are here in support of the transit workers as it relates to the missed days transit employees missed during the recent winter freeze. As some of the workers are members of the some of the members are workers and members of our congregations, their concerns were expressed to their respective pastors. Their concern relates to the way First Transit proposed they be compensated for the days of missed work. They were given the option of applying some of their compensated off time to those missed days. Their issue relates to the fact that in the past, they were paid for work days missed due to natural disasters without having to use their vacation or other compensated off days. They were requesting that they be compensated for the missed days from this weather-related incident as they were compensated in the past, the last time being August during Hurricane Laura. Other city employees were compensated for those missed days as per the past practice. They were paid for the missed days without using any of their compensated off time. The transit workers feel that as a matter of fairness, the prior practice used to compensate other city employees should also have applied to them. As for contractual implications, nothing in the contract between First Transit and the Amalgamated Transit Union prevents First Transit from paying the transit employees. As per a comment from the city manager, Kyle Hayes, to the Beaumont Enterprise reporter, Caitlin Bain, on March the 15th. Ideally, City Manager Hayes said the City Council at Tuesday's meeting would instruct the city manager to direct First Transit to pay its employees for the lost days. We would request that the council and the mayor follow City Manager Kyle Hayes' recommendation and pass a resolution instructing the city manager to direct First Transit to pay the transit employees for the missed days. The Southeast Texas Faith and Community Leaders would like to thank the mayor and council members in advance for passing a resolution instructing the city manager to direct First Transit to pay the transit employees for the days missed. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Tubbs.
Landry Roundtree, 1565 South Major Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
Thank you very much, Mayor and City Council. There was a man that found his work very rewarding. But one of the things he said when he went home, he would tell his wife, honey, I got another woman pregnant today. And she was always real happy to hear that. My wife would not be happy if I went home and told her I got a woman pregnant. And neither do I recommend anybody here, whether you're married or if you have a girlfriend, I wouldn't recommend it. But this was done by a professional. He was a doctor that worked in a fertility clinic. So sometimes when you understand everything, it brings a whole different light. And I've come to realize that getting arrested might be like telling your wife that you got another woman pregnant. It's probably not a good idea unless you're a trained professional. But there were a few people that it worked out good to get arrested. Joseph in the Bible, in the book of Genesis, he was arrested. And his arrest led to him, through a series of events, becoming a world leader in saving the world from 7 years of famine. Daniel
was arrested. And he also was able to change the religious system of his world, of that kingdom. Of course, this week we'll be celebrating Easter. Jesus Christ was arrested, suffered a cruel crucifixion, but rose triumphant. And today, if you believe on him, as the scriptures have said, you will be saved. Paul said it was good that he got arrested because it led to the furtherance of the gospel. So you might say, that was a few thousand years ago. It wouldn't be good to be arrested today. But if you thought that way, I'd like to talk to you about Rosa Parks, termed the mother of the civil rights movement. She was arrested twice. And I'd like to read to you a little bit about it. For not getting up and off of relinquishing her seat for a white man in Montgomery, Alabama back in 1955. But in 1999, Parks was awarded the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest honor to the United States bestows on a civilian. Mother Teresa also received that. Also, after Parks died at 92 of natural causes on October 24, 2005, she received a final tribute when her body was brought to the rotunda of the U.S. Capitol. More than 30,000 people filed past her coffin to pay their respects. On December the 1st of the same year, transit authorities in New York City, Washington, D.C., and others paid their contribution to her by leaving the seat behind them vacant. Sometimes getting arrested is not a bad thing if you get it for the right reason. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Roundtree.
Jewel Ragsdale, 5475 Sunbury Lane Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
This is a first for me. Mayor, council, this is an item I brought up over 2 years ago with Mr. Getz. He'll probably remember it as I'm speaking. I've been a citizen for over 50 years. And yes, I'm going to try and pull on y'all's heartstrings because for the last 4 years, my husband and I have been going through MS and Parkinson's and cancer. And we've been dealing with these neighbors that live across that rent. And there's like 10 to 15 guys and they're 20, 30-year-old. And they've taken over our neighborhood. They run it. All the other neighbors are too afraid to say anything. They saw what happened to our home after we called in the very beginning. When these renters moved in, they put 8 cameras across the front of that house. I have no idea why. I just knew that everything went wrong and crazy. I'm just going to play this for you. These are some videos, and I'm just going to play it where you can listen to it. It was just taken just this week. This happens day and night for the last 4 years. These are both at night, at 3 a.m. My husband works with Parkinson's still. We're trying to afford to move. And this one was during the day. It's like Speedway 90 around East Colwood. I have 80-year-old parents that they also knew they were my parents, and they acted on their home too by aiding it.
Mayor, could you,
I want to hear. Okay.
could you extend?
Yes, I was getting ready to, yeah, you can finish. You can finish your video or your audio.
There's so many. That was just this.
Okay.
That's all.
So did you want to say anything else, Ms. Ragsdale?
I just know that after these 4 years, I know I'm a nobody, but because I've been put in my place now, and I put these on Brian Niffo's page, like Walk My Neighborhood, and he said, come to this meeting, and that's the only reason I'm bothering y'all. That's it.
You're not bothering us. Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
Ms. Ragsdale, the sounds we were hearing sounded to me like it was working on automobiles, power wrenches.
There's over 10 of them that live there, and they all own their own vehicles, and they work on them day and night. I took even a video, but
Okay, Ms. Ragsdale, I'm really sorry, but Councilmember, this isn't a posted item. Will
No, I just
you-
wanted to understand what I was
because the
listening
other
to.
people can't, speak, so it's not posted, so we have to give equal time to both sides. That's why we
Right.
don't do that.
Okay.
But Councilmember, it would be great if you would speak with her after
I
the
will.
meeting so we can figure out what's going on. I don't remember this from before if you've brought it to us. Thank you.
this is my first time I told you when I came up
Okay.
here.
All right. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you, Thank you, Mayor.
John Vaughn, 3955 North Major Drive, Beaumont, Texas.
Mr. Cooper, I'd like to use the example you gave me last week when you attacked Mr. Landry after the meeting. Attacked Mr. Landry after the meeting. 2 years ago, last year, I went probably 60 days with an expired driver's license. If I would have been pulled over and ticketed for my license, I'd have had no argument whatsoever. But if someone would have said, how long was his license expired, and found out that it was 65 days, and said he got in and out of his car 10 times a day for 65 days, and they wrote me 650 tickets for a couple $100,000, and they suspended my license for 2 years, I would have to ask myself, why would anyone do that? That's exactly what y'all did to Mr. Landry. The only reason anyone ever does that is pride that is rooted in fear and its abuse of power. On top of that, you went on to suggest that after you suspended Mr. Landry from picking cars up, that he refused to follow your guidance and continued to do so, but that's not the truth. The truth is he couldn't pick up vehicles, so he didn't attempt to pick up vehicles, and he didn't have anything else to do. So far better than I would have ever done, he went to accident scenes and he cleaned them up at no charge. And y'all arrested him for that and put him in jail. And then all this time later, no remorse. Y'all don't need help getting this council together. I pray that you don't have peace, because you don't need peace when you have those kind of hearts. Jesus said, I didn't come to bring peace, but to bring a sword, to divide the hearts of men, to separate truth from lies. And thank you, Mr. Neild and Mr. Getz, for interrupting the peace in the midst of things like that. And you and Mr. Hayes did the exact same thing to me and my family. It cost me $40,000 out of my pocket. And so,
go ahead.
You can take my time? Go ahead, Ms. Ames, you helped them.
Finish.
I'm late finish.
Yeah. Go ahead, Mr. Hayes.
Mr. Vaughn,
Here are the facts.
Mr.
Oh,
Vaughn.
here come the
no,
facts.
No, wait,
Facts.
wait.
Give us the truth.
Mr. Vaughn,
Can we
let's let
have a
him finish,
conversation?
and
I invite
no,
it.
We can't because.
Okay, well then.
But I'm going to give the fact to the council.
Okay,
I think
had
we know
about
what they are.
30 seconds
Yeah,
left.
go
Go ahead. No, you go ahead. I'd like to respond.
Would you put 30 seconds on your phone? That's when
I
it
can't.
happened.
It'll just start.
Well, I mean on your phone. I'll do it. Never mind. Just 1 second, please, because I want to make sure you get your time, okay?
I'd like to respond to his. He does it every time I talk.
We're gonna give you
next week.
We're gonna give you your time.
Can we have a private meeting?
Come on, guys.
I would
Do
be
we
glad to have a
continue
private
acting like
meeting.
this?
Well,
We didn't start this.
no.
All right.
Oh, yes, you did, sir.
Come on.
Yes, you did.
Come on, Kenny. I got a timer.
You did start it.
I've got it.
You cost me $40,000. You put me out of business for 7 months.
I've got it, council member.
Okay? And
I'm
not
gonna
so
put it
much as an apology. Thank God we won in the Construction Board of Appeals. And you know what it is, sir? I'll end with this. It's bullying. It is bullying.
Okay.
And it
Start over.
happens not just with me, thank you, ma'am. Happens not just with me, but with the employees. And so that's why I say, please do survey your employees, because they told me and they tell me. And lastly, Mr. Hayes, at the request of the city employees, would you please allow them to make microwave popcorn again? Thank you for your time.
Okay, please. I just want to remind everyone that anyone can come up to the podium and say whatever they want, just like you can on Facebook, and what you hear isn't always the truth. What you read isn't always the truth. I'm not calling anybody a liar, but things that can be said can be not true without calling someone a liar. I'm just saying that the people that have been on this council for a long time know what happened on both of these issues. And I know that if you're in the audience, it sounds pretty bad, but those of us that have been here and sat through hearings and know what's happened actually know what's being talked about here. So I apologize if you don't. If there's any comments after the public gets through, I'll allow that for anybody that wants to, as we always do, because even if you sit up here, you still have your freedom of speech. You want to talk now or let me finish here?
I'd like to talk. Just
Okay.
here's the facts.
Well, Mr. Vaughn left like he did last week.
I get along
so-
I get along with Mr. Roundtree. Is he still here? Yeah.
Yeah, he always
The
was.
fact of the matter is this: the city attorney did not have anything to do with that matter, except I'll get to it in a point. What happened is the police department found out that he was on that non-consent tow list, responding to tows without the proper insurance, so they suspended him. The police department was the one that was filing charges in municipal court, not the city attorney. The city attorney was only involved when he appealed the decision of the police department to the city council. Or I think we had a hearing officer. That's been many, many years ago. And, the hearing officer, sided with the city of Beaumont. The case was closed. The city attorney did not have anything to do with that whatsoever. And then, as it relates to Mr. Vaughn, look, if businesses don't succeed in Beaumont, and those of you that work with me every day, the city attorney every day, our staff, we want people to thrive. Our families live here. Your families live here. I mean, our purpose of being here is to enforce the codes that this city council adopted, and beyond that, instead of telling people no, we ought to be trying to tell them how they can get the proper permits. Mr. Vaughn was caught doing work. This whole thing started because he and his brother were doing work without the proper permits. That's how we got involved. What happened after that? Yes, I do think, and I'll say it publicly, is he gone?
Yeah, he leaves.
Oh, well. So he was caught out there doing work, substantial amounts of work, because I walked through the building myself with the fire chief and the fire marshal. On one particular aspect of that, he did win at the Board of Adjustment and Appeals, and I would say rightfully so. I'm not an expert on the fire code. The fire marshal at that time made a decision at what he thought the code says, and the board decided otherwise or against it. That's the way the process works. So, but how did that whole thing get started? He was doing a lot of work without any permits whatsoever. That's how it started. Staff did everything correct. If anything was done wrong, it was maybe the interpretation of the fire marshal. But no one was trying to shut him down, or heck, we wanted him to open. He opened a very nice building out on Major Drive. It's good for the city of Beaumont. So I don't know if he lost $40,000 or not. I never, the whole purpose again was someone out there was doing work without a permit. That's what happened.
Because we have to treat everyone the same. And the board did what they should have done. And, but the thing is, but that was not on the permitting, that was on the fire marshal's issue. Two different things. Exactly. Okay.
Mayor, I have one more person that wants to speak. Do you want to move forward, or?
No, yeah, we're ready.
Okay.
We can.
Louis Vaughn, 9615 Mapes, Beaumont, Texas.
Hi, Mr. Vaughn.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. There is a silent airborne killer lurking in the city of Beaumont. And I'm not talking about COVID-19. This killer has been around longer and is more dangerous. This murderer is cancer causing, asthma impacting, and the cause of many health issues. The culprit I'm referring to is the 4 landfills in the city of Beaumont, Jefferson County. 3 of the landfills are open and currently active. The other one, located off of Pine Street, closed improperly many years ago, and thus is still releasing dangerous gases, disease-causing substance. These airborne gases can travel in a radius of 3 to 5 miles from the landfill and could potentially travel across the county. Landfills have a long history of being intentionally placed in minority neighborhoods, places where people are too busy trying to make ends meet, don't have time to fight for their health. Landfills have a long history of being intentionally placed in minority neighborhoods, places where people are too busy trying to make ends meet, don't have time to fight for their health. The city of Beaumont has several opportunities to repropose the dangerous gas release from its landfills, but voted against it. GGI Energy Incorporated made presentations before the City Council in a public workshop on December the 13th, 2011, discussing landfill methane outreach program. The company offered to set up all the equipment necessary and pay the city an annual stipend of $400,000 to produce fuel for the city's landfill. In addition, the federal government landfill methane outreach program, LMOP, has identified the landfills in Jefferson County as candidates for its project. LMOP is a voluntary program that works cooperatively with industry stakeholders and waste officials to reduce and avoid methane emissions from landfills. My mother died of pancreatic cancer. My 10-year-old granddaughter suffers migraine headaches frequently. And countless other residents across the city of Beaumont have health issues. We as a city need to pull together to improve air quality and health for our citizens.
Go ahead, Mr. Vaughn. Finish your sentence, please.
I'm asking all elected officials to please do your homework. Let's all work together to eliminate the pollution in our community. Mayor, I have letters, more information that I would like to extend to everybody.
Okay, if you want to give it to the city clerk, she'll make sure. Is there something in there for everyone?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, she will make sure
It's
we
the
get
same
that.
letter.
All right, thank you, sir. Tina. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vaughn. Is there any other citizen who wishes to speak today? Okay, if there's no one, I'll move to council member comment, and I will start with you, Councilmember Getz.
Thank you, Mayor. Last week, I sat quietly listening to the pontification of some regarding the perceived need for the city of Beaumont to create an ethics commission similar to what was done in the city of Leander. Because the agenda item was listed to discuss the roles, responsibilities, and relationships of city council members with one another, city staff, and citizens, it would be natural to think that when I reviewed the Leander Ethics Ordinance, that I would see these sort of items addressed in it. I did not. Instead, I saw statements recognizing the inherent rights of public servants under the First Amendment's guarantee of freedom of speech. For instance, quote, public servants retain their rights as citizens to publicly express their views on matters of general public interest, unquote. And yes, that would include posting on social media. After a thorough review of the Leander ethics policies, I find that its primary purposes is to identify and codify those actions which could constitute a conflict of interest for a public servant, or a prohibition of public servants accepting gifts of over $250 from people doing business with the city, or a description of what would constitute a personal financial interest or a conflict of interest for a council member. Also required financial disclosures for council members and a framework for handling perceived violations of the ethics policy. Nowhere in the Leander ethics policy does it talk about council members' roles, responsibilities, and relationships with each other, city staff, and citizens. And maybe that is because it is not the legitimate function of government to try and regulate this type of conduct. You can define the roles and responsibilities of a city council member, but a council member that does not live up to their roles and responsibilities cannot and should not be subject to discipline by their colleagues on council, for they are accountable to the people that elected them, not to the people they sit up here with. The preamble to the Leander Code of Ethics recognizes this, where it says, "It is declared to be the policy of the city that proper operation of democratic government requires that public servants be independent, impartial, and responsible to the people of the city. If a council member does not live up to their roles and responsibility, it is up to the people to make a change, not other city council members, and not the mayor. Unless there is an ethics violation committed by a council member, it is not the role of the city council to sanction a sitting city council member for exercise of their First Amendment rights. In fact, any attempt to do so gives that council member a cause of action for violation of their civil rights according to federal law. In principle, I have no problem with the Leander Code of Ethics. However, since it speaks of situations that are already addressed by the Texas Ethics Commission, the Texas Local Government Code, and other state statutes and laws, I question whether it is worth the expense that would be involved in hiring an independent legal counsel as an advisor to yet another created layer of government bureaucracy. What this all stems from, of course, is the manufactured narrative that resulted from my brief conversation with a city employee at the Sterling Pruitt Center on February 22nd, 2021, and the resulting false allegations that I yelled at or bullied this woman, or made any kind of demand that she throw away campaign material that was sitting on the counter and on a table inside the city facility. What is completely lost in the histrionics by some is the fact that this campaign material was allowed to sit there inside a city facility located in Ward 3. I am told that this has been a common practice for years, even though it violates state law. I am told that candidates or their campaign team have been allowed and even encouraged to come to the Sterling Pruitt Center and pass out campaign material at basketball games. This is not right, and again violates the Texas Election Code as determined in rulings by the Texas Ethics Commission. What I believe we need to have is a discussion about directing the city manager to adopt an administrative directive dealing with political activity by city employees. I was surprised to learn from the city manager that the city of Beaumont does not have any written policy concerning electioneering or campaigning for candidates at city facilities. When I asked the city manager what was the policy regarding allowing campaign materials to be displayed on city property, he said, "We don't allow it, and if it is seen by the right person, we try to get it back to the candidate." In my view, that is not good enough. I believe we need to have a specific written policy that describes what city employees can and cannot do with regard to political activity concerning city council elections. Fortunately, written policies of this sort already exist in other cities. At the conclusion of my speaking to you, I am going to pass out to you copies of Administrative Directive 1.2 adopted by the City of San Antonio concerning political activity of its employees. I'm asking that you take it home, review it, and then if any of you share my belief that this or something similar should be adopted as policy for the City of Beaumont, to second my request for a workshop on this issue. On another matter, back on March 10th, I asked to be provided a copy of how much money, taxpayer dollars, was spent by the City of Beaumont by outside legal counsel for the last 2 years. That information was readily available. Our CFO provided it within a day to the city attorney for his review. That was March 12th. I still haven't received it. I'd like to know what it's going to take to receive it. Any citizen should be able to ask and receive that information. How much money are we spending on outside legal counsel? Keep in mind, I'm not asking for detailed descriptions of the bills that would require a lot of redaction. I'm just asking for the number. That shouldn't be so difficult to provide. Third, we had a symphony Saturday night and Saturday afternoon at the Julie Rogers Theater. The Symphony of Southeast Texas continues to amaze me under the direction of Maestro Chelsea Tipton. They do an incredible job. We had some people come in known as the Broadway Divas. They did a medley of Broadway songs accompanied by the symphony. It was a live performance, and it was magnificent. If you ever have the opportunity to go to the symphony, and as COVID starts to decrease and people become more and more vaccinated, I hope that more and more of us will have the opportunity to do that. At this time, I'd like to pass out the administrative directive that the City of San Antonio has. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Neal? Councilmember Felshaw?
Thank you, Mayor. I know Sherry Elmer has left the building, but just wanted to express my appreciation for her many years of service to the city, and congratulations on her, this new chapter in her life. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilmember Pate.
Thank you, Mayor. I want to echo comments on Sherry, very dedicated. That's one of the great things about our city. We have a lot of dedicated employees. And one of the things that we learn when we award the 25 and 30 and 35-year awards, it tells you that working for the city is really a great place to work, because most organizations don't have people working that long. They find someplace else to go, and they'll leave for $1 or $2 an hour to go somewhere else. It's a reflection on the type of department heads and leadership that we do have, that we have the long-term associates that we do. And Sherry's a prime example. Also, yesterday, they had a dedication for Vietnam veterans, and I don't miss too many. Well, I hardly ever miss anything has anything to do with veterans, but I was unable to make yesterday's event. But I do want to compliment the wonderful job that Kerwin Stone and all of the people that are part of his organization. You know, we see Kerwin, we see Sandra Womack, who actually lives and works in Lumberton. But for those of us that are old enough to remember, you have no idea what individuals that served in that era went through. If you were wearing a uniform, when you think today how we respect and make a point of thanking service members for their service, during the Vietnam era, you wouldn't believe some of the things that we heard from Americans, as though, you know, it was all our fault, whatever was going on. Just wearing a uniform was a bad thing for some people. And we need to stop and appreciate the hundreds of thousands of people who served during that era and continue to serve in spite of not being supported by some Americans. And it was really disheartening to see it personally. Also, I know it's kind of weird to be playing football in the spring, but I want to compliment Coach Morgan. Lamar University did win that game last Saturday, and they're playing their final game this season this Saturday away. But I think under the circumstances, Coach Morgan's done a fine job at Lamar University football. We've got a lot of other great sports out there. Steve Holloman with soccer, Will Davis with baseball, tennis, golf. It is our university, and most people, most communities don't have a university, and we do. And I encourage even the people that didn't attend Lamar University to support it, because it's here. I'm pretty sure everybody that lives in College Station didn't all go to A&M, but they sure jump on the bandwagon. And hopefully one of these days we'll be like that as well. Finally, we live in a great country where we can celebrate Passover and Easter here. There are countries around the world where you can't worship your God, whoever he is or she is. You don't get that opportunity. But in America you do. And so we need to be thankful, again, every day that we live in a country where we can worship God the way we want to, and we're free to do so. And if you do a little homework, you'll find out that there's a lot of, literally billions of people around the world that don't get to do that. So happy Passover, happy Easter, and that's it, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember. Councilmember Samuel.
No comment.
Councilmember Mouton.
Thank you, Mayor. Well, again, congratulations to Sherry Ulmer on 20 years and 10 months of service. She truly, truly extended herself to our city by staying those extra 10 months because she was due to retire last year. But due to the pandemic, she extended herself to us, and we're so very grateful. I did have the opportunity to attend the Veterans Memorial unveiling of the statue on yesterday. It was held at Ben Rogers Visitor Center. It couldn't have been a more perfect afternoon for that. Congratulations to Curran Stone and his staff for a job well done. In addition to that, it had been rescheduled 4 different times due to COVID. And again, it was a beautiful service, well attended. And to the staff of the Ben Rogers Visitor Center, to Mr. Stone and his staff, a job very well done. I also would like to send condolences to the families of Isaac Randall Sr. and to the family of Cynthia Fowler. And again, it is Holy Week this week, and we do have the opportunity to serve as we can, because we're in a country that we can serve. And enjoy your Resurrection Sunday and your family this week. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Mouton. Do you have anything, City Attorney?
Yes, I do. You know, I find it interesting that others have First Amendment rights in this country to speak freely. And when I make an effort to exercise my First Amendment rights, I'm accused of attacking. If you will recall on last week, Mr. Roundtree came and he questioned my integrity and questioned my honesty. And, you know, when I tried to set the record straight, I'm attacking him, according to Mr. Vaughn. And I caused 650 tickets to be issued to Mr. Roundtree. As city attorney, I don't think, as I know the law and understand the law, I don't have the ability to write tickets to anyone. And, you know, he again says that, you know, apparently I get the facts wrong. So what I thought I would do is pull the records, let the records speak for themselves. He indicated that Mr. Roundtree went to the accident scenes to clean up, as I recall he said. Well, this is an arrest record, notarized by the arresting officer, dated March the 26th of 2014. There are 2 offenses here. One is for operation of a tow truck within 1,000 feet of a crash scene. And the other is permit required, remain on scene without permit. And I'll read the scenario to you. On March the 26th, 2014, I, Sergeant T. Dyson, was contacted by Officer Jerry Jackson in reference to Landry Roundtree interfering at a crash scene. Officer Jackson advised me Roundtree parked his tow truck in the crash scene without being notified by the police department. Roundtree, owner of Landry's record, currently has a suspended towing permit with the city of Beaumont. Landry Record Services is not allowed to enter into any non-consent police-related incident. Officer Jackson instructed Roundtree he needed to leave the crash scene. Roundtree refused and remained on scene. Officer Jackson notified me and I responded to the scene. I arrived on their scene and observed Landry's wrecker parked on the scene. I approached Roundtree and informed him he was in violation and he needed to exit the scene. Roundtree again refused to vacate the scene. Roundtree was arrested for City of Beaumont ordinance in their sections reference to operation of a tow truck within 1,000 feet of a crash scene. Landry's tow truck was parked within 1,000 feet of the crash scene. He was also charged with city ordinance violation in a section number listed, remaining on a crash scene where permits required. Roundtree was transported to the Jefferson County Jail and booked without further incident. Now, those are the facts. And I didn't read anything in there, and I didn't leave anything out. There was nothing in there about cleaning up after the scene. That was the cause of his appeal for the suspension to the city council. The city council heard his case. And, you know, he indicated that Councilmember Getz asked that rehearings be had, and because there were two other council members who were not party to the appeals process. And of course, those appeals didn't happen, couldn't get it done. And then the lawsuits ensued. So, I mean, all my attempt was in exercising my First Amendment rights was to complete the record. It's called a rule of optional completeness, so that both sides would have the facts. He was given his due process. He went all the way. I said last week he stopped at the Fifth Circuit, but actually I was informed that he did petition the Supreme Court of the United States of America to hear his case, and of course they denied that. So he had his due process, went to the highest court in the land. I get personally accused and attacked when I did not personally appear or participate in his hearing before the city council. My staff did. I did not. I didn't write any tickets. I didn't prosecute him. But I get personally attacked. Mr. Vaughn comes and says that I cost him $40,000. Again, I did not personally participate in that. Some of you were at his hearing. I sat here. I presented no evidence. I made no argument against him or on behalf of the city. But I get personally attacked for that. And when I make an attempt to exercise my First Amendment rights, a threat is made to put me on an executive session to talk about it. I welcome an executive session to talk about it. Because there was a misrepresentation made. I did not call him a liar. Go and look at the tape. I've looked at it several times. Last week's theme was about untruths, lies, and half-truths. Mr. Vaughn used the word lie several times. Some here used, half-truths and untruths. An untruth is a lie. Half-truth, lie. Not calling anybody a liar. Mr. Vaughn had his due process, and he prevailed before the Board of Adjustment, and that's his right. But it all boils down to regulations. The City of Beaumont has regulations. The state has regulations. They're federal regulations. We would be in chaos without regulations. That's why we are called a civilized society, because of regulations. I'm here as a city attorney to help enforce the city's regulations with the assistance of the city manager. That's why we're here. We're not here to abuse citizens. We're only here to make sure that the regulations are followed. Again, we would be living in chaos without regulations. And I know everyone here agrees with that. We have to have regulations in order to have an orderly society. And again, the personal attacks, yeah, in the back of my mind, I want to say I don't know why, but I think I understand why. And I think I understand where they're coming from. I'm just going to consider the source. So with that, Mayor, I'm going to catch my breath and come down.
Okay.
And I'd just like to say, finally, go Cougs, Final Four.
Thank you. Did you have anything, City Manager?
I do. I've got comments on two things. The city attorney and I probably speak 5-10% of the time, not very often, right?
Yeah.
And we hear things and don't respond quite a bit. And you need to be able to do that in our jobs. It's part of it. We had a former mayor that used to say quite a bit 20 plus years ago, this is before social media, and y'all will know exactly what I'm talking about, the mayor. He'd say, don't believe the hype. Keep on moving. Don't believe the hype. And Councilmember Pate, I appreciate your comments about this workplace. This is a great place to work. It's not perfect, and no organization is. We have, it's changed since a couple weeks ago. We have about 1,230 employees on the payroll today, and across 12 different departments and probably 40 divisions. So we do a lot of things, from picking up your garbage, water and sewer, police, fire, EMS. A lot of employees doing different things. The first part I'm going to talk about just briefly is kind of funny. You can eat popcorn in City Hall. You can bring popcorn to City Hall. What happened probably 5+ years ago, I forget the year.
I know.
People, not intentionally, but people were popping popcorn in microwaves. And after the third time that we had to evacuate City Hall during the middle of a work day, which disrupts people trying to pay their water bills to get in a building permit, after the third time of vacating this building, I said, we're not going to pop popcorn in microwaves. So I'll take responsibility for that. Yes, it was my decision, but that was the reason why, right? So the second thing, look, I've worked for 3 different mayors. I've had the privilege of working for 3 different mayors. And I was going through it the other day with my wife. I probably worked with about 30 council members, okay? And I wish I didn't have to counter someone that, I work for 7 people. I work for y'all, right? And a lot of times when things are misrepresented grossly on social media, I don't look at that stuff. My staff knows I don't. Maybe 1-2% of the time, because an employee will say, man, did you see what so-and-so said? Hey, did you see that? And then sometimes they'll show it to me. Or there have been cases where I've gone to look at it. But it would be, I think it would be inappropriate personally if I started going, it's not my job, nor should I do it. When I see a council member misrepresenting the facts, it's not my job to go counter that person, right? It's just not. Y'all could do it, and citizens are out there doing it, but it's not my job to do it. I don't like it when I hear about it. I've never had to deal with that in my 28 years of work for this city. But when Councilmember Getz misrepresents the facts, when you come in here and say as if, man, y'all need a policy, like we're not doing our job, or we have a policy. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a policy. I'll show it to you. It's in my office. It speaks directly to what he's saying. It speaks to employees cannot be involved in the election process when they're in uniform or on duty. We have it. So I can't sit here. Sometimes I do. Go say whatever you want on Facebook, but when you start handing out stuff, man, y'all need to go do that. That's just bad information. We have a policy. And when the employee came forward You're talking about an employee making $10 an hour who doesn't necessarily have to work, but does and contributes and works at that desk and has for many years, okay? Now again, the facts on both sides, I'm not here to tell you what specifically happened because we don't know, okay? You've got two people here and 3 people here, and they're saying totally different things. So I'm not here to judge. The facts, you know, were looked at by our Human Resources Department. That's what they need to do. Any employee comes forward with any charges, we look into it, right? That's what we're supposed to do. And in this matter, we thought the case was closed. He brought it up again. The fact of the matter is, he was emailing me during the investigation and emailing the Human Resources Department trying to tell us how to investigate it when we're investigating him. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that. It's not appropriate, right? So we ignored it and did our own investigation. And I say that because he's saying, and he said this all over Facebook, my staff said and printed it out for me, that like the employee was doing something against city policy. That is incorrect. Didn't happen. The city employee didn't violate any policies. Now he tries to say that literature in front of her is against city. There's no policy against that either, right? And I tried to explain this before. It happens every day in this building, in the library across the street, in other city facilities. People come in, citizens, they put stuff down on tables, on our bulletin boards, all the time, every day. That's not a violation of city policy. Our employees see it and they'll either give it back to that organization or they'll throw it in the trash. That's what happens. So to say on Facebook there's a violation of city policy and I was just trying to stop it, that's not true. It's not true. Didn't happen. Okay? And then to come up here and try to hand this out so the public can see that on TV, like y'all need a city policy like San Antonio has. We have one, sir.
Good, show it to us.
I will. I've already shown it to you. That's the sad thing. Yeah. Anyway, I didn't, you know, it's, I apologize that I have to do this and the city attorney has to do it. It gets old when people misrepresent what's really happening. And sometimes, you know, I'm not going to sit back and let it happen all the time. 90% of the time, yeah, all right, just part of it. But over and over again, there's no reason to even bring this subject up today. The case is closed. You know, let's move on. Let's talk about productive stuff like this, water infrastructure. Let's talk about projects like that. Let's talk about what we've accomplished together. There's not many cities out there that can go back 5 years or 10 years and talk about a Calder project, Washington Boulevard, Concord, all the improvements citywide, park improvements, the event center, the Lakeside Center,
Public
what we're
health.
working on for the next 20 years, you know, the new West End, you know, water plant, pump station. Those are signature projects, good stuff. And here we sit around here and talk about small ball every week, little stuff, and how people can fight one another when we've never had that. We have not had that here until it's really ramped up over the last 2 to 3 years. And you all know it, so I don't need to say anything else, but it's not productive, and it's not productive at all to misrepresent what's really happening. Are we perfect, our staff? Heck no. We make mistakes all the time, and we should own them, take responsibility. Why are we here? We're trying to make things better. And things are pretty darn good, but you surely wouldn't know it if you go read social media over and over, because all they do is talk about small stuff, just over little bitty, silly stuff instead of what's really going to move the city forward.
Thank you. You wanted a clarification?
Yes, ma'am. This is not a posted item, so I don't want to overstep. It was previously said by one of the speakers about the transit system that you were going to recommend for us to pay those. And I don't know if I misunderstood, but I just wanted to clarify that for the citizens.
I'm glad you brought that up, Councilman.
He can make a
I need to go back and look at that article. I would not have stated that because those transit employees work for, in this case, First Transit. They worked for a different company before y'all approved the contract with First Transit. And my understanding is, yes, they may have been paid, during a certain event by that other company. That decision is made by whoever they work for. They don't work for the city of Beaumont. So whether First Transit, pays them for those winter days, that's their decision. And it gets confusing because it's a pass-through, and I probably shouldn't say anything else because we, and Mr. Cooper's met with Reverend Tubbs and others out there. He'd advised me not to meet or get involved with anyone as it relates to those ongoing negotiations. So I would not make a recommendation to y'all to do anything as it relates to that contract or with those employees. We need to stay out of it and let it take its course. Again, that's between the transit employees and their employer, which is not the city of Beaumont again, it's First Transit. So to answer your question, we need to stay out of it, and I'd advise all of you to stay out of it.
Councilmember Samuel, you said you had something?
Yes, ma'am. I attempted to pass on something. Last week, I made mention to the statement that anytime a lie goes unchallenged, it becomes a truth. And a citizen corrected me in saying a lie is a lie is a lie. I understand that. This is the worst council I've worked with in over 30 years. I attempted again today to listen to colleagues 2 or 3 weeks ago. There was information brought forth that there was a complaint by an employee. For sake of trying to adhere to what the council request was, we agreed to let it go. I agreed to let it go. That following week, not the following week, the next day, council member brought it back up. We were going to have a hearing here, a public hearing, downstairs in public. That was another request by other council members, let it go. We did. Today, it comes back up when it's convenient for him to spew untruths. Consider the source of the dissension between this council. Consider the source. Now, we can continue to allow that to happen, then we become a part of it. Or we can say enough is enough. There are rules and regulations in place right now dealing with employees. There's no rules for rogue council members who disregard ethical decisions that are to be made by council members. Now, we can continue to be complicit with that, or we can call for a stop and implement some type of policy that some may say a violation of a person's equal rights or their freedom of speech. There needs to be a policy that would not allow a council member to do whatever the hell he wants to do.
Okay, so that's all. That's all. Okay. First, I've had one request I'd like to, and I should have asked you this before, City Attorney, and I remember going through different meetings or trainings at Texas Municipal League, and it seems like things keep coming up about social media and half and mistruths and all that. It seems like that's just been a topic of conversation over and over again. And I, for one, have been the brunt of it many times. And like the city manager says, I try not to look at it because once you are, it's just very difficult to take, especially when you see that it's the majority of it is not true. But that's beside the point. So I remember, and I'd like to get clarification on this, and because I might have misunderstood it. But, and this is not, this is, as I understand it, maybe state law, as far as the Open Meetings Act, et cetera, et cetera. And it's regarding social media, Twitter, any of them that, you know, are out there. And as an elected official, someone who's elected by the people, I understood that if you can have a city Facebook page, which I have for informational, and some elected officials have personal ones, and some have both. The question has been asked of me, and I remember at one point it was said that, and I don't know if it's ethics commission or what, but it was said that if an elected official has a Facebook page, whether it's personal or whether it's public, representing the entity that they are in, that they cannot, if they're talking about city business or state business or national business or whatever it might be on that page, they put anything out about a meeting that has anything to do with the entity that they serve, that they cannot block any other individuals.
That's correct, Mayor.
Okay, and where does that fall?
What you're thinking about is when our former president used his Twitter page.
That
and
was used
Facebook
as an
page.
example in the training that I was in.
Right,
that,
and he
blocked people.
an actress, I think it was.
Mm-hmm. And so the law was changed. I guess it's federal law then?
Well, it would apply to local as well.
But it would be ethics?
Yes, and when you're using your personal cell phones, email page, Twitter pages, or whatever to conduct city business,
you can't block.
or official business, then there are regulations that regulate that. So, yeah, you can't block anybody from that page.
Okay, because I have had people complain to me about that.
And your Attorney General has been in the news as of late where he refuses to give up his cell phone information pertaining to the January 6th incident. And, you know, he is the one who renders opinions that says that we have to give up our personal devices if we use them for official business. So, yeah, I mean, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Okay. All right, with that said, wanted to have clarification on that. Secondly, I just want to say about some of the things that have happened today, and it seems like it's happening more and more of late, that my position as the mayor, and those of you who are running, more power to you, because it's not like it used to be. Used to be where we always dealt with big items. We were looking at building bricks and mortar and doing things that helped our citizens, and I love that part of it. But now we really can't get past the small stuff. We can't get past trusting some city staff members to a certain degree. If you have somebody you've hired, you've got to trust them to a certain degree. It's difficult when you're working for 7 people, and I know it's difficult as a city employee to deal with that as well. But my take on it is this: treat everyone the same. If you have to have a permit to build a garage in the back of your house, then everyone else needs to have a permit. And if that's reported to us that that didn't happen, then we need to investigate it. If you have a city employee file a formal complaint, whether it's warranted or not, as an HR, you have to investigate it. That's just the way things are. That's the right thing to do. If there's a licensing issue with whether it be our people who pick up waste, or whether it be truckers or whatever it might be. Everyone needs to be treated the same. I've said that since I was first elected, and I really believe that. So if people get upset because we are trying to follow the guidelines as presented to us, whether it be the city, the state, or the federal government, then they're just going to do that. I can say without a doubt that the people who have talked here today, including Mr. Vaughn who left, I spent hours with trying to remedy the situation. And I do want to clarify, and I think the city manager did, and some of us have had this conversation, but the issue did not start with a fire violation. And true, the appeal was granted to Mr. Vaughn. He got what he wanted from the fire marshal's standpoint. But that doesn't mean permits didn't need to be pulled, and licensed electricians and licensed plumbers and anything else that's being put into especially a public building, not just a house. You have to follow those guidelines. And we're here to treat everyone the same. So if people want to get upset about it, then they are. And, if someone gets up to the podium and says certain things, I want to ask, did you get this from the person who told you, or did you get this from the record, whatever the record might be? Look at the record. People can say things they want you to hear. And that's all I'm going to say about that, but it makes it really difficult, and it's really sad because, we have a lot of great things that have happened over the last few years, and we're in a situation as a city that we can move forward and do a lot of great things. And I hope that continues. That said, I do want to mention that we talked a little bit about COVID today because of Sherry Ulmer's retirement, and our staff is truly doing a great job. And I talked to a lot of our staff, a lot of the staff members here, because I've been here so long, know me. And I would hope if city employees are saying bad things about anybody that we would hear it, and I don't. But COVID has really brought out a lot of different people, and it's really caused certain areas to shine. And I'm going to say that one more time about public health, but I bring this up for a reason. We now are vaccinating anyone who wants to be vaccinated, as I mentioned earlier. And our numbers, as far as COVID is concerned, have substantially gone down, which is a great thing. We look at it every day. We've had a couple of little spikes, but we were over 100 a day new cases in many days. And now, yesterday we had 1. Day before that, I think 10. Over a whole weekend, we might have had 20. That's very small compared to where we were before. So now we're getting everyone vaccinated, but I want to mention that we have put out a report every day that you've seen on Facebook and on our website that gives numbers. And it's very time consuming, and I applaud the people who helped me do that. But I'm looking at discontinuing that because of where we are. But we will still put out a COVID report that basically says anything new, like that anyone can be vaccinated now and things like that. We're never going to stop doing that. There's a lot of information. Some of the things that people come up to the podium and ask us about are on our website. If you had a water leak at your house, there's a form on the very top of the website that you can fill out if your bill went up substantially from one month to the next. City's not just leaving you alone on that. A lot of people say we're not transparent. There's all kinds of things on our website that you can see, and that will answer a lot of questions. So I encourage anyone to do that. But I bring this up today because I think this COVID report is kind of outdated now. We've been doing it over a year. We started it March 12th of last year. And so we will continue to put out information about COVID. But I'm going to instruct the staff and myself, we're going to stop it, not maybe tomorrow, but in the very near future, because I believe that people aren't looking at it as much because it's not as important. But I want to make that announcement publicly because I don't want anyone to say, well, she did it behind the scenes or whatever, because I'm happy to hear it from you if you feel otherwise. But I don't think so because we're not seeing a lot of posts on it. So with that said, that's where we are on that. I believe that we do have an executive session today, so thank y'all for coming. And we appreciate it very much. And come back often, and we will now recess into executive session.